Good Erev Shabbos, and by the time you're hearing this, it'll be Motzei Shabbos. Welcome to today's tonight's shiur, which is dedicated in memory of Rabbi Yitzchok ben Shmuel, Alav Shalom. This yard site is on Chavtes Mar Cheshvan, which is this Shabbos. It's sponsored by his son, by Reb Tzvi Mitz of London, and we wish him Arichas Yamim V'Shalom Tevis, and may the Baal HaYard site be a Meilitz Yosher for family mids, Sech Klal Yisrael, Tev Hanira V'Hanigla. Right, I'm currently in New York. I'm here for the Kinas HaShluchim, that's why this is being pre-recorded. And so let's go through our questions. So the first question which we have is about a non-Jewish lodger, and you can see the picture on the screen, whether there's a door from the main house to a room or perhaps an apartment within a larger house, where in that apartment there's a guy living there, and the question was, does this doorway need to have a mezuzah? Now, I want to perhaps apologize. In the past, I've possibly said different, and I want to clarify. So, the background to there's a din that a door or a dwelling, which is a partnership with a yid and a goy, then that's written in Halocho is potem in hamezuzah. There's different opinions in Yerushalayim why, but bottom line is that a shared entrance, which is between a yid and a goy. Let's say you have an apartment building, there's 4 apartments, let's say there's 3 yidden and 1 goy, and you have the main entrance to the apartment building, and each one owns their property, and so this doorway is shared between goyish partners and Jewish partners. Such a doorway does not need to have a mezuzah al pi din. But then what we're talking about is not a shared doorway, but a doorway to a room, a space which is used by a guy. So now we have here on the screen, you have from a sefer called Sharei HaMezuzah, one of these contemporary specialists for him, and he. Bigger. You want to just stay with this? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So you have here a house, or he writes a factory, which belongs to a Jew, and one of the rooms is dedicated for the non-Jewish workers. So the Jewish house needs to have a mezuzah. Now, the rooms which are exclusive for the use of the goyim, so it says like this: if the Jewish owner comes through those doors here and there, then they still need to have a mezuzah. So let's say if you have a factory and you have a room for the accounts, and that's operated, you have a goyish accountant, but you often go in and out of that doorway. So then that would need to have mezuzah. That doorway would need to have mezuzah. Now, if it's a room which is exclusively theirs, they use it, and especially if it's not on the same part of the same building, but even if it's in the same building, but exclusively for their use, then that does not need to have mezuzah. And he finishes off the entrance between bias of a yid and bias of a goy was also potem in mezuzah. So therefore, coming back to this question, the lodger is within my house, but inside that room, it's exclusively their business. I don't enter there. So that doorway to an area which is exclusive to a guy does not require a mezuzah, contrary to I may have said in the past, but really contrary to the case where it is a doorway which is used by Yidden and Goyim, and it's a partnership, then it would be exempt of mezuzah, and even in that case, it's also not so clear. For example, if it was so I said before, an example of 4 apartments, 3 are Yidden, 1 is a Goy, and they own their apartments, then that entrance is potem mezuzah. What would it be if the Aid is a balabos, owns all of those apartments, and let's say even better, he lives in the one of the apartments, but he also has a goyish tenant. The goyish tenant is not as the same as a goyish partner, yeah. So the fact that there's a goyish tenant, that would not exempt the doorway, the shared doorway, from a mezuzah, because it's the primary owner is the Yid, and the Goy is just a user. So the Goy is a partner, so then that's a reason to exempt from a mezuzah. If the Goy is just a tenant within a building which belongs to a Yid, then the main entrance, etc., that would be chayav mezuzah, because the Goy is not a partner there, he's just a tenant. Okay, let's go on to the next step question. So we have a situation where there were 6 men who davened quiet Shemona Esrei, and it sounds like it's a bit tight over there. And so one of the people, whether he came late or davened slower, so he's holding by Birchas Krishma. So can he act as chazen? You have 6 people who daven Shemona Esrei together. There's a chiyuv chazos hashatz. So can number 7? Well, what the others are doing, we're not going to go into that. But meanwhile, he is holding by Birchas Krishma, is holding by Emes Yatziv. Can he go over and lead the davening as a chazen, even though he hasn't davened a quiet Shemona Esrei? Can he daven and be chazen like a regular chazen, or does he have to stop by after Atar Kodesh? So here you have on the screen from Siman Samach Tes in the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, even a yochid who has davened already, but he didn't hear Shema, is allowed to go to the Yomid and repeat the whole davening in order to be able to enable to say the Kedusha. But he says, if he hasn't davened yet, so he should not daven a quiet Shemona Esrei and then do a repeat in order to be able to say Kedusha. Ela imkein, there are 6 people who are Reiv Minyan, who haven't davened yet. Then you have 6 people out of 10 who are davening together. They constitute like Hein K'moed Tzibur Gam. I know we've discussed this not so long ago, a couple of months ago. They daven, the 6 people will daven Shemona Esrei quietly, and then one of them will repeat the davening, if this Tisha Oinim. If there aren't 6 who haven't davened yet, then he shouldn't start, say, first a quiet Shemona Esrei. Rather, he should start aloud and read the Kedusha. Now, the main thing, which is these brackets over here, since he's going to the Yomid and is saying his own Shemona Esrei aloud, there wasn't a minyan. Sorry, there weren't 6 mispalalim, and he's going over to the Yomid, so he should only say, he shouldn't say aloud, B'kel Rom, only until Arkel HaKodesh, but no more. Because in your own Shemona Esrei, it's meant to be said quietly. The exception is B'chazar Hashatz Bilvad. If it's a Chazar Hashatz, V'zeh Ein Hashatz. This person, if there weren't 6 mispalalim, and so he says starts Shemona Esrei aloud, but he's not a chazen. He's not a shliach tzibur, because there wasn't a tzibur, and therefore his davening once. Because of this, he has to fall silent after Hakel HaKadosh. So coming back to our question, that's when, so in our case, the six people davened, Shemona Esrei together. So then there is a chiv of Chazaras Hashatz. So even if the one who takes over to do Chazaras Hashatz hasn't davened Shemona Esrei yet, but he's now doing two functions together. He's saying his own Shemona Esrei, but he's also acting as Chazaras Hashatz, as a chazan. And therefore, he is allowed to say the whole Shemona Esrei aloud. Yeah, so that's the answer to question number 2. That the one who's behind, he is allowed to say the whole Shemona Esrei aloud, following by Chatzi Tachanu and Chatzi Kadesh, and then etc. etc. In case that's not totally clear in the source in the Alter Rebbe, so now you can take a look in the contemporary Sefer Isha Yisrael, and he writes also the same thing. He says the Chazan normally would say a quiet Shemona Esrei before Chazaras Hashatz, and that says the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Mishnah, I think, he should be rehearsed for the davening. When things are under pressure, he came to shul after the quiet Shemona Esrei, and there's no other chazan suitable to take over for Chazaras Hashatz, or he is a Yorvel or a Yortzeit, and he came to shul just before Chazaras Hashatz. So he is allowed to take over as the chazan from that point, even though he hasn't davened a quiet Shemona Esrei. He doesn't have to do another quiet Shemona Esrei later. So he's allowed to take over as chazan. In other words, the whole Chazaras Hashatz from beginning to end. He also adds that he doesn't have to hesitate, and he can say Birchas Koyanim when he comes, after Moedim before Sim Sholem. He's allowed to say that also. Doesn't matter whether it's the full Birchas Koyanim or the Zeichel Birchas Koyanim, which we have, Shachris and Musaf throughout the year. You can say that also. Okay. So now question number 3 is the following. Last Friday night, this fellow lives in Eretz Yisrael, and he normally plugs in 2 appliances for Shabbos. One is a crock-pot, a slow cooker, and the other one is a hot plate. The hot plate is to provide hot food. There's chicken soup for Friday night, and the crock-pot slow cooker is for the cholent. Once the food is served Friday night, it doesn't need the hot plate anymore. So to save costs and discomfort, he plugs it into a time switch. So by 8 o'clock in the evening, let's say, the hot plate is switched off. Let's say at 9 o'clock in the evening, the balabos notices that he's plugged in the cholent to the time switch. He plugged in the cholent to the time switch. He plugged in the hot plate, and the hot plate is straight into the power. So the hot plate is going to stay alight the whole Shabbos, and the cholent is now powerless. So he's thinking, is he allowed to take the cholent and put it from the crock pot, from the slow cooker, lift out the ceramic insert and put that onto the hot plate? So he asked after Shabbos because he was aware that many Rabbanim have a minhag not to answer the phone on Shabbos, Baruch Hashem. So he's asking what would have been right. So really it depends on the state of the cholent. If the cholent was raw, was fully cooked, or if the cholent was only semi-cooked. If the cholent was fully cooked, then he would have been permitted to take the cholent from and it's still hot, still geschmack, it's warm. So then you would like to take the cholent with a crock pot and put it onto the hot plate, and you'll have hot cholent for Shabbos day. Otherwise, they don't have any hot food for Shabbos day. If the cholent, in the case was as it was in this case, the cholent to be put in the slow cooker, switched on just half an hour before Shabbos, which means that the beans, etc., and the meat were not fully cooked at that evening. At 9 o'clock in the evening, they weren't fully cooked. Now he takes it and he puts it onto so at this point, the cholent has should we say, the prognosis of this cholent is going to remain raw until after Shabbos. It's sitting on a powerless base. When he lifts that up and puts it now onto the hot plate, so he's causing the cholent to cook, and that would be an issue in our Torah. And just to take this a little bit to accentuate this, what would happen if he had lifted, even if the slow cooker is plugged in, if you lift the ceramic insert and 2 seconds later you put it back. So if the food wasn't fully cooked, so again you're over on visual. It was cooking, you took it away, so then it's not cooking. You put it back, you cook, making it cook. So you caused it to cook. That would be awesome in Torah to put it back. So that's the answer. That if the cholent since the cholent wasn't fully cooked, it wouldn't be allowed to put it onto the hot plate. Let's go on to another question, a Maaser question. So we have here someone owns 2 properties. Each one generates $500 a month. But then one of the properties needed to have some maintenance, and so it cost $2,000 to make that maintenance. So now this month there was no profit. Okay, so not only is there no profit, but also the other price. And let's say with the 2 properties, he's getting an income of $1,000 a month. But now they had maintenance to do of $2,000. So actually, this month they had a deficit of $1,000. So does he have to give Maaser on the $500 of the first property, or can he say, well, since I made a loss on the other property, I don't have to give Maaser? So the truth is that with rentals, it's a much simpler situation, more predictable, should we say. But the same question is more people who are buying and selling. Sometimes what they buy, they sell at a profit. Sometimes they buy something which is not profitable, and then becomes a question, what can they do with it? So here you go. You have here a Sefer Tzedakah Mishpat, which is a specialist sefer on Hilchos Tzedakah, and he says the following: you've got 2 asakim, 2 businesses. One you made a profit, and one you made a loss. Or in the same business, you had at one stage you made a profit, and then you made a loss. So how do you work out, okay, when can you deduct one from the other to offset the loss, the profits with losses, and therefore your net figure is a lower figure? What they advise is that you should designate a period, whether it's every 6 months or every year, to make a cheshbon of all your investments, all your ventures, and their incomes and the losses, and then you'll be able to make a cheshbon how much was your net profit or chas v'shalom otherwise for that past year, and then you'll put aside Maaser accordingly. I think that with a rental, it's much simpler. If you're getting $500 a rent per month, so that means you're making income of $6,000 a year, and if it costs you the maintenance for that year, there's going to be a maintenance of $2,000. Okay, so you've made not $6,000 profit, you've made $4,000 profit on that property, and that would be your cheshbon for your Maaser. Let's move on. So here's a couple of people recently approached me. They because of the celiac problems, so they try to keep off anything gluten. So wheat has got a high gluten content, oats has got a low or a minimal gluten content, but the oats are awkward. Oat flour is not an easy dough to work with. It's clumpy, whatever. And don't ask me about it. I have no experience, but that's what I'm told. So now there is apparently a deglutenized type of wheat flour. It's quite expensive. And so now they like to make a bread which has got also this deglutenized wheat flour, and then also potato flour or corn flour, whatever other tapioca, and in combination, you've got here a dough, which is pleasant to enjoyable, etc. Question is, as far as bracha rishona, and more importantly, perhaps bracha achroina, is it hamoitzi? Does it need to do you say the full benching or just alamichio, etc.? Now, actually, I'm sure I've discussed this in shiurim a while ago. It's also in the recent sefer Nesivim B'Halocho Minhag. I wrote out about this, that you have two scenarios. You have in Perek Gimel, the Alter Rebbe talks about a mixture of, let's say, sugar and flour. And here in Perek Ches, the Alter Rebbe talks about a mixture of flour of grain and flour of kidneys for pulses. And the psokim are not the same. And the rationale here is, you have the famous Gemara, you might have thought that you have here something like a chocolate brownie. You might have thought the main thing here is the honey, the sugar, the kamash malon. No, that the element of dogon, of grain, becomes the dominant feature, and therefore it's mezoinus and not shahakal. That politic is true by flour vis sugar. Here in Perek Ches, he talks about a different politic. It's flour and flour. There, the concept, the chidush of the Gemara, that kimcha iker, that the flour becomes the dominant feature, is not so unanimous. So just to reiterate, with the brownies, if you had just one kazais of chocolate brownie, although I'm assured that half of that kazais is sugar, the sugar became flour in halacha, and from a kazais of brownie you can make alamichio. When it comes to our situation of flour and flour, that's not so evident that the flour becomes the dominant feature. And so now let's read the wording here. He says, if you've got a mixture of flour of grain and flour of kidneys, you cannot, although you're going to make hamoitzi, but the after bracha won't be a full benching, unless, it comes a couple of stages, unless that the grain is approximately 1/6 of the mixture. If the grain is 1/6 of the mixture, so then the whole thing becomes real hamoitzi, and you bench even from one kazayas of this mixture. That's opinion number one. Opinion number two is yesh oimrim. No, true. It's the flour is not to be dismissed, but on the other hand, you're only going to be able to say birchas hamozin if you have because you eat the whole pras, and then within that pras you've eaten a kazayas of grain, so then you can make a bench. And he says there's going to be a problem which way to follow, and safek brachas lahachil. So practically, in my conversation with this Ingerman is the following. He says that he puts 1/4 is going to be this deglutenized wheat flour, and the other 3/4 are going to be potato starch. Okay? So the bracha is hametzi. In order to bench, I said to him, if you eat 4 kazesim of that mixture, so then you can say birchas hamozin. If you have just one kazais, it'd be questionable. If you had 4 kazesim, so then you've had in that 4 kazesim, you've had a kazais of a grain, flour, and therefore you can make bracha a full benching. For the shiur for benching is a kazayis. Shiur for tis yadayim is another story. That's a Maaser term kabetz. I'm talking meanwhile about berachas hamazon. Shiur's kazay, and the shiur is kazayis. Just one added perhaps complication is that in order that it should be considered you've eaten a kazayis, you'd have to have eaten it within a certain time frame. And therefore, to have these 4 kazayis of this mixture, you'd have to eat them within several minutes, whether it's 5 minutes or something like that, in order to justify saying berachas hamazon, because you've got the first opinion which says in any case in berachas hamazon, perhaps you can be a bit makel in the size of the window of achilas pras, but you'd have to have it within achilas pras in order to be able to say berachas hamazon l'kol hayom. Let's move on. Okay, so now here's a story. Mechanic messed me about, and therefore I had to rent a car because I need to get to work. Does he have to pay my rental costs? So this story which actually happened was that someone bought a car from a Hamish fella, and the car had serious problems, and so he brought it back. He says, "I'll fix it." He says, "Can you fix it while I'm on vacation?" Yeah, the vacation came and went, and he didn't fix it. Afterwards, when they came back from vacation, Taka fixed it, but meanwhile, he has to go back and get to work and back. So he had to rent the buyer had to rent a car. So now he says to the vendor, "Thank you very much for fixing it, but can you also pay for £2,000 for my rental because I was waiting around for you for the repair?" So the vendor offered him £1,000 as a pshara. And so now he's asking, is he entitled to have his rental covered or not? So here you have in Shulchan Aruch, Shin Samach Gimel, a slightly different situation, but I believe that the halacha would be the same. Here's talking about gezela. Someone stole an animal, and he used it for burdens, for riding, for plowing, and he gave it back. So of course, he's been an avera of stealing, but he doesn't need to pay rent for the hiring for the animal. He gives back the animal because there's no loss to the animals. Looks just as good as it was before. On the margin, we have the smer. It says afapi, the bala behema, the victim of this theft. During the till he got the animal given back, he needed an animal to do work, and he wasn't able to do his work. Afilohochi, since there's no damage to the animal itself, the thief can give it back. The robber can give it back as it is, because the gazlan pays only kashas hagzela. He pays the costs at the time of the gzela. So basically, what's being said here is that how do you say, that that's where I'm looking for the right word, but the tangents, because this and this and this happens, the consequential losses, which are not direct, the perpetrator is not chayav to pay. In the case of the theft, there's a simple thing, that the thief gives it back, but he also has to ask for mechila. So you can say, it's very nice you brought it back, but for me to be mechil you, it's going to cost you, that you're going to reimburse me for what my losses incurred. That's going to, they can sort that out. But coming back to this case with the one who sold him the car, which was a bit faulty, does he have a strict liability to pay for the rent of the interim? The answer is no. Is there some moral liability, perhaps? And he's offered, I told the buyer, he's offered you to meet you halfway. That's very generous of him. I think you should accept it. Right, let's move on. So someone brought it to my attention in the Sikha, which the Rebbe said, Chov Zayin Mar Cheshvan Tov Shin Mem Tes. Sikha, which was addressing the Kinus Hashluchim, and talks about the power of one person to have an impact throughout the world. It says, you say a word and someone else listens and inspired, and they share it to someone else. And so you can have an impact. You don't know how far it goes. But meanwhile, in that Sikha, it talks about the psukim of brocha, which we have the brochas of Yitzchok to Yaakov Avinu, of Yitanacha. And let's read the text on the screen of brochas. These brochas become an inyan kloli, and they are established al pi minhag Yisrael Torah as part of our davening at the beginning of our mundane activities for the week. Right after Havdalah, we say these brachas, we say V'yitanocha. In the brackets, they said like the following. But V'yitanocha is said after bracha achrona, or even before. And this is what this correspondent of mine was asking, what indeed is the minute? Do we say V'yitanocha before bracha achrona or after bracha achrona? So we have an excellent sefer by Reb Michael Zelikson called Leket Halichos Minhagim Shabbos Kodesh, and it has records the minhagim of the Rabbeim over the generations in relation to Shabbos from all different sources. And so now he has that the Rebbe Marash would always make after Havdalah, he would continue with V'yitanocha b'li hafsek, without an interruption. And so too the Rebbe Rasha. So they, right after Havdalah, they said V'yitanocha. What does that mean? Does it mean they didn't say bracha achrona? Not so. You can question that. But be that as it may. He also puts on record how the Rebbe, he heard from the people who were Meshamshim the Rebbe's house, the Rebbe would make him right after, before saying V'yitanocha, he'd say bracha achrona on the wine, and then he would, interestingly, would stand up from the table and go to another table. And we'd say V'yitanocha at the other table, standing. So the Rebbe was made a point of saying bracha achrona before V'yitanocha. What about in public? So we had at least 4 times a year where the Rebbe verbringt and it went into Motzei Yom Tov, and then the Rebbe gave out Ketzer Bracha after Ma'ariv, and then he made Havdalah and gave out Ketzer Bracha. Occasionally, this would be on a Motzei Shabbos. Not all Yom Tovim can work out that way. Occasionally, it was a Motzei Shabbos. So then, after the Chalukas Ketzer Bracha, the Rebbe would say V'yitanocha, sitting down. Okay, so he said bracha achrona first, then he'd say V'yitanocha, also while still seated at his place by the Fabrengen, and one of the Meshamshim, one of the Mechambagaboim would stand, and they would say together as a minute to say V'yitanocha, 2 people together from the same seat or more people. So things like this. You can also read in Rabbi Zelikson Sefer that the Rabbeim did not generally make Havdalah themselves. They generally asked someone else to make Havdalah, and they listened and were Yotze, with the exception of Motzei Yom Kippur, the special inyan. So therefore, this description that the Rebbe Maharash and the Rebbe Rashab says V'yitanocha right after Havdalah b'li hefsek, even if that means without saying bracha achrona, the answer is very simple. They didn't need to make a bracha achrona because they didn't have any wine. They didn't make a bracha on the wine. Very simple. Now, I want to go this a little bit further to understand it a little bit more. And we have a din. It's a Toldos inyan, that there are foods which require bracha achrona b'mekayim. But that's and so these foods, whether it's bread or it's mezuzah or shivas aminim or wine, need to have bracha achrona b'mekayim. So you have here that you're not osulach klal min koimei ad shevach chasanos tchila. One shouldn't rise from your place until you've said the after bracha. So that's a simple halacha. They should, and here's interesting. The same halacha is brought in Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, and here he says osulach klal min koimei. In the Seder Bechasinani and the Luach Bechasinani, he says osulach min koimei. It's possibly you could say that you're sitting, you said you drank the wine sitting down, so you shouldn't stand up before you've said Baruch Achreinu. And I think for Anoshim Kerakenu, that so saying Yitnachal maybe also times sometimes you get distracted here and there, and therefore it's not advisable to leave Baruch Achreinu until after Yitnachal because you might get and forget about it altogether. And therefore, it's better to say Baruch Achreinu whilst you're sitting. You drank the wine, say Baruch Achreinu. One shtickle raya for this comparison is the Seder night. After the end of the drinking the kois, the fourth kois, then it says you say Baruch Achreinu, and only then do you say Lashon Haba B'Yerushalayim. I just want to perhaps also add a fascinating insight. How the Rebbe, when he gave Ketz Bracha, he would not say Bracha Achreina before giving out the wine. And for the next 3 hours, standing there and pouring wine to everyone's cups. And after 3 hours, he sits down and says a Bracha Achreina on his glass of wine. So you can ask a question, what's such a long hefsek, hesach hadas? And the answer is not hesach hadas, on the contrary. No hesach hadas min hayayin. All of these people are drinking the wine. It's it's a hemshech of his having drunk the wine, and therefore it's okay to say a bracha achreina after everyone has finished drinking. Let's move on. So now here's a question. Okay, it's okay. I'll close it.
No, no, I'm waiting.
I didn't ask you.
I don't want to be doing it.
Yeah, yeah. So here we have a question about a shul, which is now being moved to new premises. And just across the alley of the east side of the shul, there's a church. So is it appropriate or inappropriate to have a shul there? To have the mizrach facing towards the church. So this actually comes up in tshuva from the Netziv, Meshiv Dover, and he says it is okay. It's a separate premises. It's okay. I'm still not totally at ease with it, and well, I did tell the shliach. Okay, yeah. I'm trying to record something. No? 15 minutes. Can you wait 15 minutes? Close the door properly. Yeah? So on the app called MyZmanim, you can see at the bottom, there's 2 ways of calculating what's given a Mizrach, whether it's straight east or that is sometimes, for America, it's going to be a bit more north because to the line, the shortest way to come, let's say with a plane from the United States to Eretz Yisrael, it's not going to be a straight line across the globe because the globe is round and it's bulging. It's short to go up north and come down south. So it's like a little arc. And because of this, some poskim recommend that in America, they should be davening more north, let's say on the clock, like 1 o'clock, rather than 3 o'clock, because of this cheshbon. And so it may be a good idea actually to have the Aron Kodesh on the north wall, and that way, Yaitz the Indian of davening towards Shalim according to those poskim, which my impression is that the Alter Rebbe in Simon Tzadik Dalet indeed holds that way. Right. What else do we have? So, feedback on the Tevilos. So someone sent me a message, a Rabbi Weisfish from Montreal sent me, let me find it here. So he writes to me that last week we spoke about how many times to tovel. He gives us a reference to the Sefer Hamazkir, the memoirs about Rabbi Grona, of Rabbi Grona, volume Aleph, page 158, where the Rebbe told him this Indian of 9 tevilas. And then he gives another thing which I was totally unaware. There's a volume called Meir Einei Sofrim by Rav Yitzchok Raskin, and in Simitas Zion Sif Aleph, Sif Cotton Yad Aleph, in Shulei Hagilion, he brings from Rav Moshe Zakuta and the Makubal that a sofer should tovel 14 tevilas before he embarks upon writing, I guess, Sefer Torah, Tefillin, mezuzahs. One last thing is, someone asked me yesterday, Baruch Hashem, so many Yidden coming, so it comes in shul, people are saying Birchas HaGoyimel one after the other. Would it be acceptable for one person to say Birchas? He was asking, could all the people say Birchas HaGoyimel together? Now, this is an old shaila, and in every yeshiva, the big yeshivas, comes after Pesach. You've got hundreds of Bochrim coming back, and so Maaser mit Birchas HaGoyimel, because they come with planes from overseas. And so in some Litvish yeshivas, I heard that they takadu, that one Bocher says it on behalf of everyone. And now I remember 45 years ago, where Rav Zolti came to Melbourne. I was a shliach in the yeshiva in Melbourne, and he was medaik in the Rambam. And it says v'chitzad moide, v'chitzad mavorich, v'chitzad mavorich, v'chitzad moide. And he wanted to medai that Birchas HaGoyimel you cannot delegate. You cannot be yosef through a shliach. Thanking, you have to thank on your own. You don't thank through a shliach. That was his moral understanding of it, and also medaik in the Rambam like this. And then what about one person, everyone's saying it together? Well, then you come into a shaila, can you hear Trei Kol Olim Mishtami? You have to say, do people hear two voices or more at the same time? And the fact that people are asking for a shortcut means that to say it's Reide de Chavive, that they can hear every voice, the Metzias is Mistamanish, I say. The Rike came back Kodesh Chazisicho, that when the Rebbe, I remember when it came Tishri, etc., and the Rebbe standing after Kriyas Torah on the side of the bima, and one by one Orchim would come and they would say Birchas HaGoyimel, and the Rebbe was waiting and answering each one. And so if we were able to matriach the Rebbe to listen to a Birchas HaGoyimel one by one, I don't think we should be jalava. We shouldn't begrudge people to say Birchas HaGoyimel one after the other. They've made a massive tircha to come here, to come me'ever layam, and we should give them the 30 seconds what it takes to say Birchas HaGoyimel and give each one the bracha. Mishav Mocha Teu, Hui Mocha Kol Teu Selo. With this, I'll finish today's shiur. Good Shabbos and a good Tavoch. To hear Basuras Tevis, Basuras Alyo Hanovi, Bavasa Hagulo. To say that Mashiach is coming, and we should be Zeicher, V'sech Zeno, Inenu, Shul Cholitzim, V'rachamim.